Hi, everyone. This is Debbie, and welcome to the Transition Bridge podcast. This is the podcast where we come together each and every week to discover more about the purpose and the power of our life's transitions. And one of those life transitions, it's not only painful, but it impacts a whole family, and in particular, the children. And that is when the time comes for divorce to become a reality. It's a challenging time for the entire family. And for that reason, I wanted to have my guest, Rosalind Sedacca, to be here with us today. Rosalind is recognized as the voice of child centered divorce. She's also a divorce and co parenting coach, and she's the founder of Child Centered Divorce Network, which provides advice, programs, coaching, and other valuable resources for parents who are facing, moving through, or transitioning after a divorce. Rosalind is also the author of How Do I Tell the Kids About the Divorce? It's an internationally acclaimed ebook that's designed to help parents get through the tough divorce talk with the best possible outcome for themselves and for their children. Rosalind, welcome to the Transition Bridge podcast.
Oh, thank you so much, Debbie. It's a pleasure to be with you today.
Oh, it's wonderful to have you and having you as a guest. I know we're going to learn so much about how you share how not to only help the couples, but the children as well, because divorce is one of the most challenging transitions a person or a family can navigate.
Absolutely, I agree.
So tell us about, I love your title, The Voice of the Child-Centered Divorce. So what does child center actually look like in real life, not just in theory?
Well, divorce, as you know, is challenging for anyone. But if you
Yes.
don't have children, you could go through the divorce process and no matter how much conflict is involved, ultimately the divorce ends and the two people can go on their way and never see each other again. When children are involved, it's totally different. You're going to be co-parents, hopefully, for the rest of your life. And that means you have a responsibility to your children. And it forces you to interact with this other person that you're divorcing and still have a relationship with them as co-parents. And that's very challenging. So child-centered divorce is a divorce where first and foremost, we focus on the fact that we're parents and we're responsible for the well-being of our children, and we want to make sure our children get the very best from us so they have the best possible future.
That is so good because what happens in that moment, in that season of time in the family, gets carried forth into the adult lives of those children. And a lot of that pain seems to come out later, doesn't it?
Absolutely, you're so right. And that's why
Yeah.
I want parents to understand that every decision they make from the beginning is impacting not only themselves but their children. And what we want is for your children to be able to thank you for the way you handled the divorce when they're grown adults. And that's something that a lot of parents aren't thinking about when they're in the midst of the conflict of a divorce. They're not thinking about the fact that these children, no matter what age they are right now, they're going to grow up and be adults and they're going to hold you accountable for the way you handled the divorce and made the decisions regarding the divorce. So we have to stop right now and be very mindful about all of that. And a child centered divorce, the whole focus is making sure parents never forget that facet of the divorce process.
So, what do most parents get wrong about divorce that kids wish the adults understood better from a child's
Oh,
mindset?
there are so many things that typically happen when parents aren't mindful and aware. And the good news is they can be stopped because once you're aware of these pitfalls, you can avoid them. You don't have to do them. But people who aren't aware and don't understand make very typical mistakes. One of them is fighting around the children. Regardless of how you feel about your ex, your children are hurt when they're exposed to conflict and fighting. Even if it's in the other room, even if it's on the phone and you're talking to a friend or a neighbor, if if you're fighting about the divorce, the children are impacted by that. They hear it and it changes who they are. It affects them emotionally and psychologically, and often for a lifetime. So, most every divorce professional around the globe will agree that one of the biggest mistakes is exposing your children to the conflict and the fighting around the divorce. You need to move it away to another time and another place when the children aren't around. One of the other big mistakes is bad mouthing your ex or your soon to be ex, uh, because let's face it, when we're having a divorce, very often there's a lack of respect. There's a lot of discord and disharmony, and it's so easy to roll your eyes and make a statement and say something about the other parent, and we're not aware of the fact that our children innately love both parents. It's very hard for them to hear a parent they love talking and putting down the other parent, and it hurts them internally and it scars them internally. It leaves lasting scars. And so we want to be very aware of the fact that we have to speak respectfully about the other parent, regardless of how we may feel. And very often we feel justified in the feelings we have about the other parent. But that's not the same thing for the children, even older teens. We don't want to be bad mouthing their other parent and saying things that are nasty, because it hurts our kids and they're helpless to do anything about it.
Well, that is so true. They are helpless because they're the children, and even to have a voice at that time would be so difficult for them. So, Rosalind, why is the divorce talk such a pivotal moment for children, even years later? And how do you help the parents have that conversation?
Yeah, it's definitely one of the most difficult conversations any parent is ever going to have.
Yes.
Let me just start by giving you a personal story out of my own life.
Yes,
Um,
please.
my son was 11 when I finally made the decision to divorce. I had put it off for years and years because, like so many other people, you don't want to screw up your children. And I felt a lot of guilt. And so I held on until I realized he was starting to have um, some signs of the fact that the divorce was impacting him emotionally. He was getting stress headaches and things like that. And I knew
Mm,
that this was not a healthy environment to raise him in, and we would be better off if mom and dad lived in two separate homes. So ultimately, we divorced when he was 11, and my ex and I learned how to raise him. But this was way back in the 90s, and so this was a time when there wasn't the level of support and information that we have now. So we
true.
really had to put the pieces together and figure it out. And we did. We raised him. I think we did a pretty good job with it, but you never know as a parent. And one day when my son was in his early 20s, he came to me out of the blue and he said, "You know, Ma, you and Daddy really did a good job with the divorce, and I just want to thank you, because
Oh,
most of my friends whose parents divorced either hate their parents or are very angry at them. And I think you and Daddy were really great with everything you did." And I let out such a sigh of relief, because I was holding on to so much guilt, as so many parents do, because you just don't know, am I screwing my child up through this process? And that's when I realized that I had learned so much about what to do and what not to do and how to do it and how to avoid conflict and how to make things as smooth and easy as possible, that I ultimately founded the Child Centered Divorce Network as a result of that conversation, and became a divorce and co-parenting coach. And because my background was in writing, I wrote several books and courses and programs, all as a consequence of that. And that's what started me in the process of creating the Child Centered Divorce Network and everything we're talking about. So it's something that I wanted to bring up, because when you're having that difficult divorce conversation, that was one of the first challenges we had, is figuring out what to say and what not to say. And I have some words of advice, and that is, first of all, children will listen to what you're saying if both parents are in alignment. If one parent is saying something about the way the divorce is going to take place or what's going to happen in the future, and the other parent isn't there or is negating it and saying something else, that's when the kids are having problems
Mm.
because there's discord. But if both parents can get together beforehand, talk about things, what the message is going to be, then they can move ahead in a way where the children can accept it because they're feeling that the parents are still parents. And that's number one, is that you have to understand that you are going to be parents forever. The form of the family is changing, but we are still a family. Even if the parents remarry and have other relationships, we are still a family and we are still mom and dad to these children. And that is a level of comfort and security for the children because they're not feeling abandoned. They still know they have two parents. And you want to make sure you tell them there are six messages that I suggest talking about that I share in the book. But among the most important is the fact that this is about change and not about blame. So we don't have two parents who start talking about divorce and then saying, if your mom didn't have an affair, this wouldn't be happening. If your
Yeah.
dad wasn't an alcoholic, this wouldn't be happening. That's not the level of information we share with our children because one of the big taboos is sharing adult information with children, regardless of their age. Even when they're teenagers, their brains are not capable of processing adult information, and it puts an emotional load on the children that they can't hold. They can't handle this information. So we want to speak to children in the age appropriate level that to communicate with them, be very reassuring, and remind them that this is about change and not about blame. So what we are talking about is life is full of changes. We change
Hmm.
grades in school, we change our haircuts, we change the friends we have. This is a change in the form of our family. It's different in some ways. We're going to be living in different houses, and there may be moves to different locations and a lot of other things, but many things are still the same. And among them is the fact that both of your parents, I'm sorry about that, both of your parents are your parents and love you, and that both of your parents,
Let's stop right there. Since your phone came on, I'm going to have them edit that part
oh,
out.
thank you. I'm so sorry about that.
Yeah, is it off?
I had the phone off. That's what I don't understand even why we heard it.
Yeah, I keep mine outside my room because you just never know.
Oh
But
no.
yeah, let's go back to
Okay.
the age appropriate and maybe take it from there.
Okay. So we want to have all of the conversations in age appropriate level so that the children are understanding what we're saying because it not only what we say is important, but how we say it and the feeling, the emotion behind it. The more united parents are in the message that they're sharing, the more children can accept it with ease because both of their parents are behaving like parents. So we want to talk about the fact that this is about change and not about blame, and that many things are normally changing in life. Our grades in school, the our friends, the sports we play, things like that are part of life. And this is a change in the form of the family, but we will always be a family. We will always be your parents, and we will always love you. Stressing the fact that we will always love you is the most important thing of all. And it's not about one parent loving more than the other. It's about both parents being there for you and loving you. If we can get both parents to understand that and align themselves that way, it's a gift to the children because the children are feeling much more secure about the unknowns ahead for them. And that's
Yeah.
the gift that the children certainly deserve to have. So the conversation is one in which we're talking about the fact that the future need not be so frightening for them. We're reassuring to them. And I suggest creating a storybook with family photos from the past right up to the present
Mm.
that parents create together. And that's part of my book, How Do I Tell the Kids About the Divorce? Because the children can read it again and again in the days and the weeks to follow that initial conversation, and it gives them security. It gives them a sense that the future is going to be brighter than they may have thought, and that's very comforting for them. And it also aligns the parents in understanding the message that we're giving about the children, so that neither parent is saying something inappropriate. And that is a blessing for the children.
Oh, absolutely. Well, you're giving them a hope and you're getting helping them navigate this themselves. So, as you're speaking, I just have like two questions in my head. Age appropriate, but and and I can understand that, but what do you do first of all, maybe when your children are only 5 years old or 4 years old? How do you handle that? And then what do you do when you have a spouse who has a lot of issues and who's not willing to do it so beautifully like this? When you have another spouse who's contesting you and you can't get them to that place, how do you handle that?
Well, those are both very important questions, and I'm glad you asked them. So, the first, it is about it, you talking to very young children. Young children aren't going to be caring about a lot of the details and information. It's totally different when you're talking to an older child and especially a teenager. But what they're picking up on is the energy, the this sense of unity within the parents or not. And so what talking to little children about is just reassurance and comfort that things are going to be okay, and we as your parents are making sure it's okay, and you could ask us anything and you could talk to us at any time. Give them permission to vent, to
Mm,
cry, to express their emotions, because this is a very traumatic experience for everyone in the family. So don't make your kids wrong for asking a wrong question, or for having a heavy emotions, because that's only normal and natural. What you want them to know is that they can talk to you at any time, and you want to look them in the eye and remind them of how much you love them, and that that love is going to be forever and ever. And that's what children need. And there's a very important co-parenting point I want to make at this point,
yes,
and
please
that
do.
is when a parenting question comes along, like asking something about discipline, should we do this or that, and disciplining Johnny. If you're making the same kind of decision you would have made before the divorce, then your children are going to accept that as a normal part of life. Mom and dad don't always say things that we want to hear, but they're saying it, and so that's the way it is. Versus when one parent is suddenly saying, I'd let you go, but dad says you can't do that.
Mm,
It's if Or if you're making a decision that normally you would say, sure, you could go sleep over Susie's house, but now that I know that your mother is going to be upset about that, I'm purposely going to say you can't do that. And when you're making a parenting decision to hurt your ex, as opposed to support your children,
mm,
you're off kilter, and that's what creates discord and problems in co-parenting after divorce. The more the two parents can align themselves with parental decisions and make the kind of decisions they would have made before they were divorced, after the divorce, the easier it is for children to get on in life, because they know they have two parents who are still parenting them. Now, of course, that's the ideal. It doesn't always work that way. And
right.
you get it's inevitable that you're going to have different values and opinions with your ex. Partly that's why you got divorced. And that's human nature anyway. Even when you were married, even in the
Hmm.
best marriages, there's differences. So that's why I focus as a coach on teaching communication skills and conflict management skills, and anger management skills, because we need to have some skill sets. We need to have some strategies. We need to have some ability to walk in these delicate areas, tiptoe through some of these delicate areas, and respect our own boundaries. So parents need to talk and understand where you have differences, and decide how much you want to be fighting. Pick your battles when you're co-parenting. Every single thing that your ex does that's different from what you would do doesn't make it wrong or bad. It just makes it different. You have different values, you have different perspectives and different ways of looking at things. And so you may want to compromise, or you may want to take turns. You'll get your way this time, I'll get my way next time. Or you may want to just talk to the children together and say, Mom and dad see this differently. So in mom's house, you're going to go to bed at this time. In dad's house, you're going to go to bed in that time. And that's okay, because mom and dad both know about that. And we're both agreeing. It's the disagreement, it's the conflict, It's the disrespect that parents are showing to the other parent that creates pain for the children because they don't know how to handle the situation. If the parents can do things that are as united a front as possible for
Mm-hmm.
the children can get on and move on with their life as much as possible. And I want to remind every parent our goal is to give our children a childhood. Divorce can
Good.
rob your children of their childhood, and that's a crime. We don't want our children to be living in anxiety or fear or stress
That's right.
when other kids around them aren't because you're getting a divorce. That's not fair. They shouldn't be paying the price for your divorce, right?
Oh, I
And so
totally agree. And I'm so glad that you brought that up. And I can see now why your coaching helps so many parents as they're navigating divorce. You need to have rules and boundaries and guidelines. And it's, I think, so powerful when someone outside the relationship establish the rules, at least the guidelines that they can adhere to make this a healthy transition for the family, even though it is so traumatic. And
yeah.
so I was thinking too about the spouse that may not be agreeable or may have anger issues. And I understand that you've created an 8-hour anger management course for co parents. So, why is unmanaged anger such a silent saboteur in post divorce families?
Because the anger not only affects the two adult parents, it
Mm-hmm.
inevitably affects the children too. And
Yes.
when people in the family are walking on eggshells around one parent because that parent has anger issues, it's long lasting emotional disturbance. People who send their children to child psychologists fix my kid because my kid's misbehaving at school, getting bad grades, become a bully, is thinking suicidal thoughts, all of those horrible things. They didn't just start yesterday. They started over time, and usually it has to do with dysfunction between the parents in the home. And children don't know how to react and behave when these things happen. They do the best they can, but their brains are not able to figure it out. And so parents wait 5 years, and then 5 years after the divorce they go to a child psychologist and say my kid's acting out and I'm really getting frightened about this behavior,
Mm-hmm.
fix it. And the therapist will ultimately find out that during the divorce the child was traumatized by decisions that were made or weren't made, things that were said or should have been said, those kinds of things. Fortunately, when we have insight and awareness, we can avoid a lot of those problems because we're being mindful of our children. We want to be watching our children every day. And if their behavior is changing, if they're suddenly becoming aggressive, if their grades are changing in school, if they're
Mm-hmm.
suddenly turning in to themselves and becoming calm and quiet and losing their friendships and losing their lust for life, these are all problem areas that should be addressed very early on. And no one knows your children the way you do. And so we want to be able to handle those things so that the kids don't have to spend years trying to undo the damage that was done because parents were not mindful of the decisions they made or the way they behaved or acted out, and especially anger, which is a frightening emotion. It's intimidating, it's scary, it hurts a lot of people, and it never serves to help with family discipline issues and parenting issues. When children are being bullied or intimidated by one or both parents because of anger issues, that's never the way to handle family dynamics.
No, that's
So
true. And even that person probably needs some type of counseling because that anger
absolutely.
has a root and a reason behind that as well. So, for parents that are listening, how can a parent tell the difference between venting and emotionally burdening their children?
Again, trust your gut because you know your children. You know the norm for your child. If your child is suddenly behaving in a different way than they usually have been for years and years,
Mhm.
So you want to be able to talk to them, and venting can be healthy because they need to feel the ability to speak and say what they're feeling. They don't know how to resolve these problems or solve them. The parents didn't either. Most of us have no idea. That's why the divorces happen, because we don't have the skills to handle the relationship challenges. So we can't expect our children to be savvy enough to be able to handle our relationship problems. They certainly don't know how to handle their own fears and insecurities, but they behave the way that they behave depending on their personalities. So in the same family with the same two parents having conflict, one child may turn in within themselves and become very isolated. Another child may turn out and start becoming a bully and very aggressive. It's just the personality of the children. But either way, both of those sides are warning signs to us that something
Mhm.
has to be handled. We need to bring in professional help, get some guidance, and address it as early on as possible. And one thing that's very important for parents to remember is that it's never too late to say, I'm sorry. We
That's
all make
good.
mistakes as adults.
Hmm.
But if we can sit down, look our child in the eye and say, mom's really sorry about what I decided. It wasn't a good decision, and I know it was hurtful for you. That is really sorry. I never meant to say those things to you, and I apologize for that. If we show our children that we are big enough to apologize and take responsibility for our behavior, they are learning that they can apologize for their behavior. And what a gift that is to our children to understand that early on, that there's no shame in being able to say, I'm sorry, and own your behavior. People who can't do
Absolutely.
that become problematic people, and they become
Hmm.
angry people. So your children will usually always accept the apology, be so grateful to have it, show you
Yes.
love, because all they want is to see you happy. You want to see them happy, and it's a matter of maintaining that love bond in the family and letting them know that nothing transcends the parental love I have for you.
That's so powerful. An apology is a gift to anyone in life. And so, Rosalind, I have another question, and I'm thinking about the child who assumes responsibility or blames themselves for the divorce. And you hear that a lot. So, how do you help children navigate through that mindset now that they have? This divorce is because of me. Maybe if I was a better child, maybe if I didn't do this, mommy and daddy would not be getting divorced, because the child can only process from their own heart and their own emotions. So, how do you help children in that state?
Debbie, I'm so glad you asked that question. It's one of the most important questions of all. And it's true, children will blame themselves. And so, very early on, and especially in that divorce conversation, you want to tell them none of this is your fault. And especially if
Mm.
parents are fighting about the kids, which happens a lot in families, even though the parents are fighting about the kids, it's not the kids' fault for the divorce. It's the parents' fault for their own communication issues and lack of skills. So we want to remind our children frequently that this isn't your fault and you're innocent. And there's nothing you could have done or done differently that would have changed the situation. No one can fix our situation. That's why we're doing what we think is best, so that life will be more peaceful. When you're with dad, life will be more peaceful. When you're with mom, life will be more peaceful. And we're going to go on, and all of us are going to be happier than we have been. So we want to make sure the kids get that message, and we want to make sure they understand that there's nothing they did or could have done differently to that would have impacted life in the family and made it better. They are totally innocent and always will be.
That's a beautiful answer. And it makes me think forward, because eventually um, the parents may consider dating and finding another partner in life. And again, that's another emotional setback for a child. Now the parent has someone else that they love, and the confusion of them not loving their other parent, but now they're loving someone new. So, what do kids need most when a parent starts dating again? And what do adults usually underestimate during that time?
This can be a minefield, and it's very filled with deep emotional misunderstandings.
Mm-hmm.
So children are very concerned when most parents start dating after divorce, because they don't understand that there's different types of love, and parents have to sit down when you're starting the dating process, and talk to your children regardless of their age. Talk to them about the fact that you're going to be out there and making some new friends. And I recommend that you really do this in a very slow way, and you don't involve your children with any new partners that you may be meeting until you feel you have a keeper. So it may be that your months or years go by before you're really bringing your children involved with that. But once you do, they need to understand that the love a parent has for a new partner is nothing like the love that they have for children, and that the love for you as my child is infinite and forever, and is the strongest love in my life, and no one will come before you, my child.
Mm.
Kids need to hear that again and again. They need the reassurance, because it's very easy for a child to feel very insecure and be frightened by this new stranger coming into their life, seeing their parent happy suddenly again, and feeling a competition. You don't want your children in competition with new love interests. And you want to make sure
Good.
that if they understand the difference in the loves, they'll feel better about that. Also, studies have shown that the better the relationship the children have with the other parent, the easier it is for them to accept a new partner in your life. Because if they know that they're secure with their own dad in life, then when mom brings in another guy, he's a new friend in the family. He's a new part of the family dynamic, but he's not replacing my dad who's over here and I'm still seeing my dad, and vice versa. So it's much easier if both parents reassure the children that they're not losing their other parent in the process of my bringing another person into the family. And that's the mature way of handling things.
And I
And
also think it's important for the child not to feel they're being replaced, or you don't want them to feel like,
absolutely,
oh, this could be unsafe now. So the way that that's presented is so critical. So let's talk about jealousy from an ex. Can be very common but rarely discussed. So how can parents navigate that without letting it control their decisions?
yes, jealousy from an ex can be a big issue. And again, understanding the more insecure a party is, then
Mhm.
the more likely they are to be jealous suddenly. And there can be a competition, because one parent may be finding a love interest at a different timing than the other parent. And it's very hard to look and see your ex happily dating and in a romantic relationship while you're feeling lonely, and your life is torn apart. Uh,
Right.
Again, very deep emotional reasons to reach out to a coach, to a therapist, to a support group, to finding other people who understand your situation. This is very common, and there's no one easy answer for it, but it's something that needs to be talked through, and we all need to work on our own inner selves in understanding that the only one we could change in life, the only one we could fix in life, is ourselves. So we can't be doing anything about our ex's love life or lack of love life, but we want to be very mindful about the way we speak when we're around them, about the things we say. We don't want to be triggering our ex. We don't want to be bullying them. We don't want them to feel that they're being maligned or put down in any way. And these are takes mature, responsible adults to behave that way and not make mistakes. I do want to add one other thing that we haven't mentioned about the children as one of the problems that often happens, and that's when children feel that they're concerned about their parents The parent is depressed, the parent is sad, the parent
Oh,
is
yeah.
not handling the divorce well.
Mm-hmm.
And very precocious children, especially young girls, will step up and try to parent the parent. It's okay, I'll take care of you, or I'm going to be the man in the family now. And
Mm-hmm.
those kinds of behaviors, it's very, very damaging for a parent to let their child, no matter what age, even older teens, start parenting them. We are the parents, and we are the ones who have to parent our children. And if we have insecurities and needs and hurts, which is understandable, then we need to reach out to other adult professionals to get
Yes.
support. Because when we let our children come up and take care of us and parent us, we rob them of their childhood. They're suddenly little adults. Once you're a little adult, you can't go back to being an innocent child anymore.
It's
Your
true.
brain is working in a different level. You're trying to think like an adult and fix mommy or daddy, and it
Yes.
isn't their place to do that.
It's
So
not fair either. You know, they call that parental inversion. And it
yes,
eventually in adulthood, it affects them as they step into relationships. And you're so right, Rosalind. It steals them of their childhood and they're not
yes,
created yet in that space to take on that burden. And so it truly is unfair. And so the best advice is for that parent to get counseling, to get coaching. And, you know, this whole transition of divorce, it's an ongoing um, counseling, getting help, trying to do it right for the mother, for the father, for the children, to always be aware of how we're being impacted now, maybe in our children's teenage years. How is this impacting? Like being aware of their emotions and how you were presenting earlier, how they could be showing up with bullying issues in school, or maybe their grades are suffering. And so to not overlook that. So it truly is something that I'm so grateful to have met you, because you obviously have all of the tools to help both the parents and the children navigate through this. And now I'm looking down years in advance where the time could possibly come where now you have blended families.
yes.
So, what makes a blended family? How can a blended family work long term? And what are some of the warning signs, maybe that parents need to know that they could be moving too fast?
Yes, blended families can be very complex because there are so many moving pieces.
Yes.
And everyone has values that differ, and everyone has fears and insecurities, and they all come together. So there's a lot of emotional psychological competition, and so we have to take baby steps in getting to know each other, not forcing people to like and expect them to love your new partner, to love their children, your children, all of those
Mhm.
things. It's a slow, time consuming process, and everyone has to be very mindful about that. Everything in life works better when we have mindfulness and awareness. That means we just stop and think first about it, and understand what dynamics can be playing, and then take baby steps in making decisions and doing things. We don't abruptly jump into anything at this point post divorce, because there's so many factors that can be at play. And again, no one knows your children as well as you, so you have to trust yourself. But
Mhm.
one of the rules is never to expect a new partner to jump into a parenting role, a discipline role. The new partner is a support system, a friend of the family, someone who's there for the kids, but not to discipline the kids, not to suddenly step in and pretend they're the new mom, the new dad, because children innately resent that. And it's a slow process for them to open up to understanding that this is another good person who means well towards me. We need to be very patient with all of these kinds of situations. They can work, but there's a lot of ways that they can fall apart if they're not handled well.
Oh, I can just see that. And what I'm hearing you say, it's so important for the new parent coming into the blended family to really establish a bridge of trust. really just kind of be there, but not be that disciplinarian, not to, because the child still has another father or another mother. And it makes it very complex for the child to know, who do I listen to now? It must be so
Yes, yes.
confusing.
So the most important thing for us as parents to remember is that we are role models for our children. And it's not as much what we say, it's what we do, the decisions we
Yes.
make, and how we go through the process of doing what we're doing. And so, if we're mindful of the fact that we are the role models for our children, it can stop us in our tracks from making a lot of mistakes that we see too often. Because if you just think things through, you can understand how this is a possibility and this is a possibility, and let me stop here and think before I do that, before I say that, and have a conversation. Open the door, talk to your children of whatever age, and reassure them and find out, let them let you know what's upsetting them, what's bothering them, what they're frightened of. Because the more you acknowledge that they have the right to feel what they're feeling and that you appreciate their sharing it with you, the stronger your relationship is with the children, and the easier it is to nip things in the bud before they get too
Yes.
crazy.
Rosalind, I have so enjoyed having you here on the Transition Bridge podcast. You have so much wisdom. It comes from your own personal experience as well. And you've learned what works, what doesn't. And then to have the fruit of your child coming to you years later saying, good job, mom. You and dad did it right. It wasn't easy, but you did it right and you did it healthy. And that to me is a testimony of your heart and why now you are so instrumental and so impactful in helping families. So, in closing, I want to ask you one more question. What would you say to a parent who's listening right now, who's just feeling overwhelmed and worried, gosh, I've already messed it all up. What do I do now?
It's never too late, and that's the really, really good news. Even if you feel you've messed it up, it can be undone with words, with communication, because kids pick up on the heart message that we're sharing with them. And when they know you're being sincere and open, they will accept and understand and talk to you. It may take longer the older the children are, because older children are more judgmental and more opinionated, and so it may be a more difficult process. But if they see that you're sincere and really mean that you want to heal a relationship with them and let them know that they can trust you, they will understand that, and they will do that. Communication is something that, no matter who you are and what level of life, never ends. We need to be doing the best communication we can, and we need to be doing it as openly and honestly as we can. And it's difficult for everyone. What you're feeling and going through, most people who've divorced have had similar feelings and similar challenges. You're not alone. It's comforting to know you're not alone, and that there's so many things that other people have done before you that can be lessons, so that you can avoid the mistakes, so that you could more quickly open up and make new and different decisions. So it's never too late. Never give up on the family dynamic that you're in, and let your children know you love them, because that one sincere feeling can open up so much connection within the family for everyone, and that'll make all the difference in the world moving forward.
Oh, that's well said. Beautiful advice. And I'm going to have all of Rosalind's contact information in my show notes for anyone who wants to reach out to her. And also, please get her ebook. So, Rosalind, what would be the best way for people to connect? Would it be to go to your website?
Yes, my website has all my coaching information, all the resources and material that I've put together, courses and programs. It's all at child centered with an ed divorce, childcentereddivorce.com. Everything is there, and I think you'll find a lot of answers. And there's a free ebook there, as well as other books and courses and programs specifically for the dynamic that you're looking to work on.
Well, thank you so much for all of that information. And to my transition tribe, I want to just say thank you for coming in again, because today's transition is a tough one. It's not easy. It's painful. It's challenging. It just comes with conflict, and it's just so much is experience. But I wanted you to hear Rosalind, and I wanted you to have access to all of her information, because if you find yourself in this sensitive time of divorce and you want to walk through this for the health and the benefit of your children and your heart as well, please reach out to Rosalind. Check out her website. I believe everything that you're going to need to know, you're going to find right there. And thank you for being here again with me each and every week, because together we're learning more about the purpose and the power of life's transitions.